It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill. And if you didn't catch the last episode, that is part one of this topic within the lab series that we're doing, which is really around inflammation and detox and what all of that actually means. So in part one of this topic, we talked about like what inflammation actually is, acute inflammation versus chronic inflammation, how inflammation matters or impacts fat loss and metabolism. And then we kind of broke down inflammation and liver and cell health and thyroid, water retention, some of the markers that we look for with inflammation. But this is a really big topic when it comes to detoxing with the body, kind of some of the methods and tools that we use within Fuel to address these things, and all of the parts that matter and can lead to or prevent inflammation overall. So we kind of went through the like, what is it on the last one? And now we want to get a little bit more nitty gritty of how to read what's going on with your body beyond the labs, and then understanding the whole person connectedness when it comes to inflammation, how it can present in someone's body, and then what to do about it ultimately.
And I think a lot of women start by thinking, oh, I'm inflamed. I guess I need to work harder. I need to diet more. I need to work out more because I'm inflamed. They feel bloated and they think, oh no, I need to cut foods because I'm sensitive to something. And a lot of times they're misreading this, and then it ends up creating more of an issue because it's really like a systemic or chronic stress type response to the body, not because it's body fat or a lack of discipline or need to diet harder. So if you're inflamed and under recovered and constipated and stress adapted, and then you try to do more, you actually probably need more recovery, better fueling, better digestion, better clearance in order to actually reduce inflammation before then striving for whatever fat loss or physique goal you may have. That's separate.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that too, because I get a lot of questions of like, what do I take for inflammation, or how do I know I'm inflamed, or there is not like a supplement. And even people talk about like, what foods do I eat? Well, like there is an anti-inflammatory way of eating, but again, we still have to look way beyond that. It's not just food causing inflammation or not. And remember, there's a trickle down effect. So let's say that your food quality was really poor, or you went through an extremely stressful period of life, and now you feel like, okay, I'm presenting with inflammation, either physically feeling that way or on my labs. You still have to look at, okay, what drove that inflammation in the first place? But also now we have to take that snapshot, because if your inflammation has stemmed from chronic stress, under eating, and poor food quality, and now you have underlying gut dysbiosis, okay, we know what drove us there, but now we have to address this current state of the environment to pull the curtain back, and then make sure that we are addressing the behaviors that led us there so that you don't end up back in that place. So it's really important to look at the habits, the behaviors, lifestyle correlated with your symptoms and correlated with the labs and the actual data snapshot, so that we have the whole picture and that we're addressing it accordingly. So
like a great example of this is like, I have a client right now who I have a couple I can think of with similar situations, but like one who is having a skin flare up as a side effect of all these other things that are going on. We got her tests and her labs, and we know she has several different overgrowths, bacterial overgrowths in her gut that are not great. She has extensive H. pylori and stuff. Well, we just started a protocol, and she's like, well, since I eliminated these things, my rashes haven't gone away yet. And I'm like, okay, time out, right? The rashes are this trickle down of inflammation that is now showing in a way in your body, but we haven't even started the kill phase to address the root cause yet, right? So I think a lot of people think, well, if I eliminate this food and then the rashes clear up, it's a food sensitivity issue and I should just keep this item out. No, that's not the case. Maybe you keep the item out for a short term if it helps the symptom so that you just feel better. Meanwhile, let's address the root cause, and then those rashes might not show up at all, right? So I don't know. I just wanted to give an example of that because I think a lot of people jump to that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's an important differentiator in a care model for somebody's health is like, yeah, we want to relieve your symptoms and for you to feel better. And sometimes supplements and things can take the edge off or give us a little bit more.
Or eliminating something might take the edge off for a short term.
Right. Like fiber, right? If you can't digest fiber well, fiber is really good for you, but sometimes we'll pull it back, fix the terrain, and then add it back in. So yeah, symptoms are like the smallest piece of the puzzle because we have to look at the whole picture. So agree. I feel like that's like, we can hammer that home every day. And then liver is a big part of, I talk about this a lot in my content. I feel like it's starting to get attention, and I think it's important to differentiate what the liver's job is and what the word detox actually means, because I think in diet culture, people see detox as a means of weight loss, and that is like, they are not the same. They are two polar opposite directions. Oftentimes, I think detox gets correlated or lumped into weight loss because if you go on a detox and you do have a little bit of inflammation, you do have a little bit of water retention, you're going to see the scale go down. And then people make this connection in their head of, I need to detox, and that's why I can't lose weight. And it's like, those are not the same thing. So I used to say that you don't need a detox because your liver can do it, until I really understood how impactful toxins and things and the exposure to stressors on our body around us are and how they accumulate. And we've done an episode about allostatic load in the past, and that's really what it comes down to. But
the liver still does do the work if it's in a healthy operating system, right? So what our goal is to improve your phase 1 and phase 2 detox processes first, and then great, now your liver actually is operating and firing on all cylinders like it did before you had all these symptoms and issues.
Right. So detox is a sequence, right? It's not just this like thing you do. It's not this one step. So,
and if we talk about a detox or a detox protocol, if we do like a liver flush protocol, it is a very specific thing. I would not just go Google, liver detox, because they said this on this podcast. There's a million really crappy versions that people will use just to sell a product or just to market something
or whatever,
without the why behind every single part of it. So like, ours is not just an elimination. We are pumping up very specific nutrients to have specific trickle down processes in the body. So again, I want to give a caveat. So we're not just trying to DIY it and looking up some juice cleanse thinking it's a detox in the way we're talking. That's not what we're talking about.
Or supplement that's for liver. Right. So while there are things that can certainly support the liver, that's a different conversation. But yeah, to Jess's point, the protocol that we take some clients through, not all, is very like targeted and therapeutic process. And we are blasting the body with food and nutrients and all of those things, where I think a lot of people associate detox with calorie restriction and just juice and eliminating certain foods. And there is a very specific intention behind the macro ratio, the calorie target that we aim for, the number of servings of fruits and veggies, the actual foods that we use within the recipes, within the protocol, the timing of meals, the size of your meals. There's so much that goes into it, to Jess's point. You can't just like 101 it from Google, sadly. So there's phase 1, liver detox, and it's really just when we're talking about this, we don't have to get too granular in phase 1, 2, 3 and what they do, but it's really just understanding that, the liver has this process, this metabolic detoxification, and it's eliminating stuff from the body, substances, some harmful, some harmless, but that's what our liver is helping us do, is metabolize some of that stuff out. And then there's different substances. There's fat soluble, right? Water soluble. So, we eliminate that through our stool and our urine and our bile. But obviously, as most people know, Gen Pop, what the digestive process entails, generally speaking, through elimination. But there's a lot that goes into that to make that process really effective. And then your body, through any process, needs the tools or the raw material, right? The nutrients, the amino acids, the vitamins, all of those things are what support those processes being effective. They're like precursors to that process. So that's something else to understand. I think when people eliminate foods, you're stripping your body of the tools that it needs to do its job. So that's
you're like hiring a bunch of contractors to stand around without giving them the bricks to build.
Yeah. So, and why deficits long term are not beneficial to your health. Like, yes, there are health benefits to losing body fat, but it should be really short term because we want to make sure that we spend most of our life packing our body with calories and nutrients and adequate fuel to do its job, specifically with the phases of the liver.
So phase one is essentially like starting the breakdown process of things, right? Of toxic stuff we want to eliminate. We don't want to
move it through.
Yep. We don't want to push phase one without also supersetting the body up for phase two, because phase two is essential to actually get the toxic stuff out. Yep. So phase two is almost like the packaging center that then takes the toxic stuff and binds it and says, okay, now we can mobilize it so that our body isn't uptaking it and circulating it back in the system, for a lack of a better term.
Yeah. So phase one is like we're changing these substances into the form to do our next job. And then we're grabbing onto those substances to get them where we need to go. And then we're eliminating them. But a really important part, and something we stress in our program is the elimination piece. So if you are not pooping and eliminating regularly every single day, phase one and phase two are kind of irrelevant. So it's almost like you got to go 3, 1, 2. You have to be eliminating so that your body can go through phase one, go through phase two, so that you can execute phase three and get everything out. So the body has to be able to move that stuff out. So that's really like what the liver's job. So the liver's kind of like grabbing onto stuff as it moves through digestion to change it so that we can eliminate effectively.
And with phase two detox, like there are specific nutrients and vitamins and minerals that aid in that process, like in that mechanism in the body. So we do often recommend supplements alongside these dietary changes and behavior changes where we're reducing inflammation, because your body specifically needs magnesium for that. It needs some glutathione precursors for that. It needs different antioxidants for that. So we are really specific in what we're suggesting. It needs things that will help with bile, like acid production. So all of those are things that we're adding in during if we are doing a targeted protocol for a liver detox or liver flush type thing.
And sometimes we're doing our liver protocol to precede somebody's gut protocol, because if we can't eliminate and get things out, we're not going to go in the gut with this targeted supplementation and stir everything up, right? Like think of like pollen on a tree. You go up and shake the tree, what's going to happen? You're going to be like, holy cow, right? That's kind of what we're doing with the gut, but we want to be able to grab those things, transform them, and eliminate them, right? We want to get that out. So we have to make sure the liver can do its job effectively. Then we go shake the tree and get rid of the stuff, right? So,
and it's really cool. Like, I know that this isn't an episode specifically about liver enzymes. This is an episode more so about systemic inflammation. But like I had a specific client I can think of who went to the doctor, and both of her liver enzyme numbers were really high just on her general physical. And she came back and said, okay, what can we do about this? We literally did this, and her doctor retested her in a month and a half. And after, her liver numbers were in optimal ranges. They went from super high to optimal ranges just from doing this thing where, okay, it was 2 weeks of super rigorous work. And then we finished out a month with essentially an anti-inflammatory protocol, a whole foods Mediterranean type diet. And boom, her numbers are now in a super healthy range, and her doctor was super pleased by it. So it was really cool to see that collaboration.
Actually, that's a good point too with detoxing. You might look at your labs before a detox, and right, we get all our ducks in a row. If you were to grab a snapshot or get labs done in the middle of a detox or gut protocol, it might look real ugly, right?
Worse. It might look worse. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to look worse, right? Because again, we're shaking that tree and stirring the pot, and then we're getting everything out for it to regulate. So, a good example of this is if somebody comes to us with fertility goals, we usually will be like, hey, are you like, I got to get pregnant tomorrow. I want to get pregnant as fast as possible. Or are you like, hey, in 6 months, I really want to get super healthy and dialed first. That answer matters, because if they're like, get pregnant tomorrow, I'm not going to run labs and prep for a detox protocol and have them spend money on supplements and things because we can't detox through pregnancy. The
long-term health outcomes, they would probably be more fertile on the other side of that protocol. However, the short term is, okay, this isn't to pair with that, right? So we are always looking at, we're not driving in two different directions at the same time. What's your biggest goal right now? And then we're going to go towards that.
Right. So you might see some cycle dysregulation, right? As your body things are kind of wonky in the middle. The best analogy is always the closet, right? You want to clean out your closet, you pull everything out. It's a big clusterfuck, right? Before you put everything back in a nice organized manner. So, middle of detox is that's the ugly middle, right? That's where things are kind of all over the place until we settle back down, and then it's better than you ever imagined, right? So that's really the goal. And then when it comes to, again, elimination and just the effectiveness of detoxing and all of that moving through your body efficiently, bile is a really, I think, overlooked piece of that puzzle. So bile is made by the liver that helps with breaking down fat-soluble nutrients through the body and then eliminating them through the stool. Bile can be sluggish, but also I feel like we talk to a lot of women who have had their gallbladder removed. And if that's the case, you should be on some type of bile support. So we can actually take bile acid in a supplement form where we are replenishing what your gallbladder cannot support, right? In that regard, if you don't have one, or just the effectiveness of doing the biles, what the job that the bile does, right? So an example of that is if we're trying to actually replace or support the actual bile itself, we might take bile acids. But if we're trying to help do the bile's job or make it more efficient, we might take something like TUDCA. So again,
or we might even just add lemon water, and I'll do a hot tea with lemon in the morning to get that started if I want to produce more bile acid. Or I'm trying to think of other examples. There are some foods that have polyphenols, I feel like, are something that kind of help with bile production. Yeah.
So right. So we want to make sure, again, that clearance is the goal, and bile is a big piece of elimination being effective and that process happening. So bile is a big piece of that puzzle. And then also just actual drainage, again, just eliminating those byproducts. And that's important for estrogen clearance, for inflammatory byproduct elimination, fat digestion, constipation, right? Skin symptoms. So that can be a really good indicator. If you have a hard time digesting fattier meals, or you feel like nauseous almost after, again, gallbladder stress or removal, or just poor absorption of those fat soluble nutrients, which again, we want to make your body more efficient, but sometimes we layer in supplements on the front end to make sure that we can eliminate effectively. And then as we move through the order of operations, your body just gets better with hydration and fiber and nutrient absorption and doing its job more effectively overall. And then with the flush protocol specifically and what we do, again, this is not for every client, but it's really a very structured initial stage to reduce inflammatory burden, support liver detox, improve elimination, help with blood sugar, cell energy, motility, everything, and just create a more responsive internal environment before we progress into that deeper repair and regulation, gut hormones, all the things that we normally do. We could do literally a whole episode about the flush protocol, but again, just understanding it's very short term. It's a therapeutic phase. There's a specific intention behind it. And not everybody needs it.
Short term, 2 to 4 weeks. It's not like a months long thing.
Yeah. And again, the intention behind it is not weight loss in any way, shape, or form. Clients are eating anywhere from 2,100 to 2,600 calories typically during a flush protocol. Now, can you see weight loss? Yes. And I feel like this is always a very controversial, why didn't I have this benefit question from people? But I lost 12 pounds of inflammation in my 4-week initial stage the first time I did this. Not everybody has that much inflammation or that body response, right? So again, the goal is not weight loss. And even if you feel inflamed, if you don't see the scale drop a ton during a flush, it doesn't mean you were wrong or that it didn't work or whatever.
I've done it and did not have that. I've done it several times, but the first time I ever did it, I did not have any scale change whatsoever. But by the end of it, my gosh, I had better cognition. I didn't have as much anxiety or ADHD type symptoms. I felt like I could focus again at work like I used to when I was in high school. So there's lots of these other benefits. And that's the goal is, hey, we're trying to just get your body operating better and we're trying to reduce inflammation during this period.
Right. We're removing a lot of those inflammatory more common inflammatory triggers: gluten, wheat, dairy, soy, corn, processed foods. We're adding,
while also supporting phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox.
yeah, and then we're adding tons of fruits, veggies, nutrients, just whole foods. We are not eliminating carbs, fats. Typically, there's actually a slight reduction in protein. Lots of hydration, electrolyte replenishment. And again, these are through that, we're incorporating medical foods and very targeted supplements, or not even just supplements, just very targeted lifestyle and nutrition support. Stress reduction is a massive, massive, massive piece of that puzzle too. So ultimately, I think just understanding the liver's job, how we can support it, the different phases of that, why elimination is such a huge piece of that puzzle, is really important when we're understanding where do I start if you truly have inflammation present in your body. We're looking at labs, of course, symptoms, of course, but also what do you do in your day-to-day life that might have led us down this path. And now we have maybe downstream ancillary things we need to address: thyroid, gut dysbiosis, hormone dysfunction, PCOS, whatever, but we need to go back to the beginning, and move through that effectively. So, there's a lot of,
and we don't just do this with everybody. Like, some clients really need to increase their calories first and just get their body to a place where it's not feeling stressed from being dieted all the time. Some need digestion support first, which you talked about. They need to have elimination regularly.
if you're not eating enough calories, that's always going to be step one, right? And
but some need like stress or immune system support first, because we know that their immune reaction and flare-ups are going to be too bad from detox type symptoms. So we can't bring them right into it. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah. And then if we're looking at, again, sequencing order of operations, that's going to be really individual to the person. We talked some about the labs and patterns that might point us towards inflammation via ferritin, CRP, some of those markers on a CBC. And then, again, gut can be a big contributor to inflammation. Blood sugar imbalances or insulin resistance can be a big driver of inflammation. So we really have to look at the symptoms, the liver, the gut, the blood work, and the lifestyle. Like, that's kind of step one. And then hormones and all of that ancillary stuff addresses down the line. And again, a lot of people are like, my ferritin is this, my iron is this, should I supplement with this? Or my CRP is high, what anti-inflammatory supplements do I take? And the point of us saying all of this about liver is like, hey, this is step one. If you feel inflamed, and those things will likely resolve if we improve operations, improve inputs in terms of your day-to-day life and what your nutrition looks like overall. And then I think, Jess, you touched on this a little bit, but like, if somebody suspects inflammation or feels inflamed, I feel like that wires get crossed a little bit in terms of what is actually happening. And to your point, if they feel inflamed, they think, I got to cut calories. I'm sensitive to this food, so I have to cut it out.
Or they use like laxatives or aggressive cleanses because they're like, elimination's important, but it's like, I feel less bloated because I just pooped everything out of me, but you're not actually supporting the why behind it.
Yeah.
Also, I also see this a lot. Again, I'm not shaming anybody for drinking alcohol. I drink alcohol socially. But that is a big problem. If you're trying to lower your inflammatory burden and you're like, but I'm eating an anti-inflammatory diet, and then you're having wine a few nights a week, it's like, okay, we're adding right back to that inflammatory load. You're giving your body a toxic thing. Yeah. I feel like that's a kind of a common one.
So yeah, again, between this episode and the last, just understanding the manifestation of inflammation of itself, and making sure that you're not mistaking inflammation for bloating or body fat, or trying to go to extreme measures to, putting in air quotes, pull inflammation off when you don't even know what the driver is in the first place. So I'm not saying also that if you want to reduce inflammation that you don't also have body fat to lose. Both of those things can be true and present. In fact,
both of those things often do come hand in hand. If you are excess body fat or under muscled, you likely do have some level of inflammation, right? And being healthy metabolically adding muscle mass to your frame, eating whole foods, doing the basics that we always talk about will help over time also.
Yep. So if you are inflamed, constipated, bloated, dysregulated, all of the things, you executing, especially if you've been chronically deficiting and dieting, executing a fat loss phase, your body is going to be less responsive, right? In the context of, you might have to go to pretty extreme lengths to see weight loss, and then you're tipping the scale, right? So let's say you have to go down to 1,000, 1,200, which I never recommend, to lose weight, to actually move the scale because metabolically you're so downregulated. Now you're stepping into territory of exacerbating whatever thing is underlying. You are psychologically going to have a lot of negative impact because it's really not realistic to be able to execute that low of a calorie intake long term. Just making a fat loss phase way harder than it needs to be. And then you introduce a GLP-1 in the mix these days, where people are using that as leverage to execute a very aggressive calorie deficit. And now cycle is dysregulated. You have hair loss, and people are like, but I'm not inflamed anymore. Okay.
Medically induced anorexia essentially is what that is doing. And then you also have motility issues along with it oftentimes, which can lead to more underlying issues. So as soon as you add food back in, you think, oh no, food's the problem. Now I'm suddenly inflamed, where it's like, no, you created this dysfunctional internal environment. You just didn't see it yet because there was no food added back in.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've kind of shifted within the program is like, hey, we're just going to heal, right? We want you to be healthy from the inside out. That is why people are coming to us. So we are walking you through these protocols based on you as a person, your diet history, your labs, your symptoms. It's extremely specific to you. And then when fat loss is easy and your body's more responsive, now we'll shift into this very metabolic body recomposition, physique change focus after we've healed. But why would we double down on the thing that you've been doing for the last 5, 10, 15 years just because I'm the one holding your hand through it? Doesn't make your body more metabolically responsive. So we still want to focus on what has you feeling inflamed, what is leading to metabolic downregulation, which inflammation can play a huge role in that. Address those things first and then do it later. If you are like trying to white knuckle through a calorie deficit, even though you feel inflamed, more power to you, but likely not going to lead to sustainable results long term. Not to mention that continued restriction of calories is only going to further exacerbate the issue that was already there in the first place. So hopefully that's good. All of that said, when it comes to inflammation and just detoxing overall health, regularity, going to the bathroom every day is super important. Eating adequate, yes, calories and protein. We talk about that a lot from a general and physique change focus, but also, are you getting enough whole foods, nutrients, quality calories in your day to, again, give your body the raw materials it needs to do its job effectively. And then look at your habits. Are you training 6 days a week with no recovery? That's going to lead to inflammation. Are you drinking alcohol regularly because you're a social butterfly? Love that for you. But if you feel inflamed, that's going to be a problem. If you're not getting enough fiber, if you have a hard time digesting fast, you're bloated, you wake up puffy, huge scale swings. And then again, nervous system wise, are you just fight or flight? Some people just wake up bloated and inflamed. Like all of those things are obviously indicators that you might need some deeper support in terms of detox and addressing what's actually driving, obviously, that problem in the first place. Most importantly, knowing that inflammation is not the problem. It's like hormones. We call it the check engine light, right? It is a signal that something else is awry, and we have to we got to go underneath and look at what's going on. So again, our protocols, our job is to help your body reduce that burden and support the systems within the body so that you don't just have to endlessly deprive yourself, which is only going to make matters worse, whether that's with something like a GLP or not. And I know it can be overwhelming, but all of those things really are important. Enough calories, enough sleep, regulating your stress, enough hydration, nutrients, minerals, movement, all of
cruciferous vegetables and bitter herbs to help with those liver detox phases. Things like that are really great. And there's such easy ads. You don't need to do some crazy protocol to go eat some broccoli and cabbage right now, you know?
So you can get information from your labs, but at the end of the day, if you're listening to this episode and you're like, I'm dealing with inflammation, what do I do? Start with eating enough food, enough nutrients, right? So lots of fruits and veggies and colors, as many as you can, hydration and sleep. Like if you address those things first, you're going to feel so much better. Now, if you have had dysfunction for a long time and you're in a place of like gut dysbiosis or whatever that might need more targeted support, those things are still a really good place to start. Then get some labs and figure out what you need to do next. But ultimately, movement, hydration, and sleep and whole foods.
And muscle. And muscle. Like
Yep.
aim to build instead of just running your tail off to try to lose weight.
Yeah, less is more in that regard. We often actually cut a lot of clients back in their training to 3 days a week, but it's very heavy and very intentional. And you're going to get more out of a program like that is intelligently designed and programmed strategically with progressive overload and making sure we're hitting all the body parts and getting enough volume and mobility versus you just going to a class 6 days a week for the sake of burning calories. So, obviously whole other episode, whole other thing we could talk about, but that is all for the inflammation piece of this lab series, and we will see you guys next time.